You asked for him, and I'm delivering. Damian Parson of Locked On NFL Draft and the Draft Network joins me as we talk about the combine, draft prospects, and where the Giants might find the best values in next month's draft. That's coming your way next on the Locked On Giants podcast.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This episode of the Locked On Giants podcast is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use the promo code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. I'm Patricia Traynor, your host, credential member of the New York Giants media for Locked On, as well as for Giants Country over on the Fan Nation Network. And I want to send a special welcome to my Blue Crew community members, my everydayers, my newcomers, and everybody in between. You're all appreciated and loved. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day, or if you watch on YouTube, your first watch of the day. And on today's Locked On Giants podcast, you asked for him. You said, bring him back as soon as you can, Pat. And he is here. He is Damian Parson. He is a talent evaluator, works over at the Draft Network, but more importantly, he is part of the dynamic duo of the Locked On NFL Draft podcast, which if you're not checking out, please do yourself a favor and check those guys out. They are doing some fantastic work. Damian, so good to have you back on the program.
I'm glad to be back. Saw a lot of the comments, a lot of love from the Giants faithful. So I was definitely pleased to come back. Not a problem at all.
Well, Damian, we've got a lot of draft questions that we're going to ask you. And, so buckle up, strap down. I know you've got a lot of notes. I know you were at the combine and you've been grinding tape nonstop, looking at these prospects. And Damian, I think we've got to start with the quarterbacks. How did the combine? Now, I know not all the quarterbacks worked out, but that being said, what was the feeling coming out of the combine as far as did anybody help their stock that maybe we weren't talking about as much, or did anybody hurt their stock?
I think Michael Penix Jr. out of Washington helped his stock, right? First things first for him was the medicals. That was going to be the big thing. He finished, he spent time at Indiana, like 3-4 years there before going to Washington. And I believe it was like 3 straight years at Indiana. He ended the season with a season-ending injury, right? 2 torn ACLs, 1 was a shoulder. So going to Indianapolis, being evaluated, being poked and prodded by the doctors, making sure that the medicals were going to come with a green light. And it did. I think Ian Rappaport, tweeted out, or he was on the broadcast, said, listen, the medicals from what we've heard have been good and been great for Michael Penix. So that was the first hurdle for him to cross. But he walked out there on the field like a guy that says, you know what, I can play a game today. You saw accuracy, you saw ball placement, the arm strength, timing and rhythm, the confidence he had as a passer. I think he, for most of this process, the Senior Bowl was kind of up and down for him because he was getting used to being under center and different things like that, where Spencer Rattler from South Carolina was the best overall quarterback in Mobile. I think Michael Penix helped himself and put himself back in that, to me, that back into the first round range of for a quarterback, potentially for a team. Now I could see him, if a team said, listen, if of course Caleb, Jaden, Drake, all three, the top 3 are gone by the first 3 or 4 picks, and then you're looking at JJ McCarthy. And if a team like the Falcons at 8, were to take JJ or move up to take JJ, trade up with like the Chargers or something, I can see Michael Penix being the target for a team that's inside that 15 to 20 range. But I think he worked himself back into the first round. I think JJ McCarthy answered some questions. He has an amazing personality. Like he's going to be an outstanding locker room guy, first off, but he answered the question about his arm strength. There were some people questioning how strong is his arm, and he was letting it rip 60 plus yards down the field with ease. Now, he didn't complete all those passes because that's probably one of his developmental areas, is like the deep pass outside the numbers down the field, right? He's a fastball pitcher that has to develop a slider, has to develop a changeup, has to get more pitches to his bag. Or if you're a golfer, he's got a great drive, but he needs the putter. You know what I mean? He needs those things to where it's like, hey, not everything needs to be a 105 mile per hour heat seeking missile. Like you got to be able to throw with more touch consistently, and everything like that. But he showcased the arm talent. Anytime they call it the Josh Allen drill when you throwing the go ball at the combine, and he showed that ability. Him, Joe Milton, those guys excelled at it. Where some guys it was a little hit or miss, like the Michael Pratts and the Bo Nixes of the world, where the arm talent just you could tell was different when those guys went up for their reps behind those behind McCarthy and Milton. But I think McCarthy and Penix Jr. really helped themselves overall, just being able to showcase their physical ability, but also the type of people they are, and I think that's going to be a big thing for them.
Damian, when it comes to the Giants, I still believe the Giants are going to go receiver in the first round. I like Roma Dunze for them. So that being said, just sticking with quarterbacks for a moment, who are some day two prospects that really, help themselves that you could potentially see, being there for the Giants that would make sense for the system that they run?
Quarterback or just any position?
Quarterback.
I think Spencer Rattler. I think Spencer Rattler helped himself a lot. Like he didn't run. People were like, "Well, he didn't run a 4.7." I'm like, "Well, he was never going to run like a 4.6, 4.7 the 40." And at the same time, he's a quarterback coming out of a 3-point stance. I just want everybody listening to this to understand the 40-yard dash is completely overrated in terms of evaluating talent. Do not weigh it super heavily in your evaluations because it's not a natural football function for most players outside of edge rushers and defensive line. But for him, arm talent, the accuracy, he throw, especially throwing to guys you're not even anywhere near accustomed to, right? At the Senior Bowl is a different situation because you're practicing with guys, so you learn their timing, their rhythm when they break. At the Combine, you don't really get a lot of that. Like you're out there and you're slinging the rock and you're slinging the ball, and your first rep could be with Xavier Legette, the guy you played, at South Carolina with. Your next rep could be with Troy Franklin. You don't know who the next receiver is going to be. So just watching him just be stoic and poised. And I think that was a big part of his maturation. And going to South Carolina, a lot of people question, why would you go to a team that was so, in lack of a better words, down bad, as the kids say? Why would you go to a situation like that? And I think that showed his competitive nature, but it also showed his toughness. He was behind one of the worst offensive lines in college football, right? I got people texting like, man, I just watched that Georgia tape for South Carolina. It's like, Spence was under pressure the entire game, and they had a chance to win that game if he had a little bit more time in the pocket, if he had a little bit more help from the receivers outside of Xavier Legette, different things like that. So if they could run the ball, but that's just kind of was the nature of the 2023 season. I think he did a good job, and he would pair well with his arm talent, right? This is a former projected first overall pick 2 years ago. Like he didn't just lose that physical ability that everyone lauded and applauded him for. He still has that, and then he showcased the ability this season that he can make throws on the move, that he can make throws from different platforms, but he can also create second reaction opportunities with his legs. And where I look at a Daniel Jones, and when he gets under pressure, the skittishness, the horrible decision making, the turnovers, like those things really start to rear their ugly head with him. And don't get me wrong, Spence, because he had to play hero ball, right? He had to play hero ball for South Carolina. And I always talk about this with quarterbacks like him. I've seen enough from him to where if you get him with a coaching staff that tells him, hey, sometimes, or we're going to put you in positions where when you walk out of the huddle, you're not walking out of the phone booth to be Superman. You can walk out there and be Clark Kent. You can walk out there and play the game of a Brock Purdy, and it's not on your shoulders 24/7. You're not relied to win every single game for us, even though he has the skill set to do so. So I think he helped himself overall outside of the 40-yard dash. Arm is really good. He's accurate. He has good ball placement. And again, the mental fortitude of this young man has been forged in stone. It's been forged by the fire, and I really expect him to be a good pro going into the NFL.
Hey, Giant fans, passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay's Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Hey, Giant fans, if you're having trouble finding those last minute tickets to your favorite concerts, shows, and sporting events, GameTime has you covered. They offer a wide selection of seats, complete with seat views to help you decide where to sit, and they're constantly offering last minute tickets through flash deals. There are no hidden fees. You'll know exactly what your deal is before you check out. And with Game Time, they even have tickets available as late as an hour after an event starts, making it truly the best place to find last minute deals at amazing prices. Want more reasons to trust Game Time? They offer event cancellation protection. And if you find tickets in the same section and row for less elsewhere, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So go on and take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Terms apply. Damian, I want to talk about receivers because, as I mentioned, I think the Giants are going to go receiver in the first round. You've got the big three. You've got Harrison Jr., Adunze, Malik Neighbors. I'm sure other guys have helped their stock, but first part of my question is did that, ranking in your mind or in the scouting department, the scouting community, did that change any? Did one guy maybe rise above the other? And then the second question I have for you is how much can one of those guys really help to elevate, say, a rookie quarterback or any quarterback's game for that matter, especially when you have a guy like Daniel Jones, who it looks like they're going to run it back with him, who has been skittish, as you said, and who really hasn't had a number one receiver since he's been here.
Yeah, I think, of course, with Marvin Harrison Jr. not, testing, he won't do any testing this entire process. He's like, listen, you guys seen my tape, see you in training camp, right? Or see you in rookie OTAs. And Malik Neighbors said, he didn't test, or he didn't even, if I remember correctly, I don't believe he measured in or did medicals either. He might have did medicals, but I don't think he measured in Indy. I think he's waiting to do everything at his pro day with Jaden Daniels and everything. So it was Rome Odunze that really popped off to me, measuring in at 6'3", 212, 32 and a quarter on the arm, over 9 inches on the hand, but he ran a 4.45, a 1.52 split, jumped nearly 40 inches, had a 10.4 vert, a 6.883 cone, and a 4.03 in the short shuttle. And he just showed that size, that athleticism, that smoothness to his game. He's very smooth with his route running, his break points, everything, understanding how to get free from man-to-man coverage. And then he has the athleticism to, again, we watched the tape all season. If they left Rome Odunze one-on-one, Michael Penix Jr. was looking right in that direction. It was like, okay, you want to give me my guy on the island? I'm throwing that back shoulder fade to him. And that's where you look at, okay, how can he help Daniel Jones? He gives him a bigger target on the outside that Daniel could just say, you know what? He's down there somewhere, and I can put it in his vicinity. I call Rome Odunze is one of those receivers I call an area code receiver, where you just got to get into his area code, right? It doesn't have to be in the exact location, the exact address. Just get it within the city limits, and he can make a play. And that's what he's able to do on a consistent basis, down in and down out. I think, when you look at him, I think he's an absolute wide receiver one. I got a shout out my guy, Ray Garvin, from Destination Devi. We was talking earlier this week, and he said, man, I don't have a wide receiver 1, 2, and 3. I have a wide receiver 1A, 1B, and 1C. And Rome Odunze, along with Malik Neighbors, is in that, and Marvin Harrison is in that top 3. I do believe when you think about just size and speed, Brian Thomas Jr. from LSU helped himself a nice little bit at 6'3", 210 to go out there and run 4.33. That's DK Metcalf territory, right? That's DK Metcalf territory in terms of height, speed. He ran a 1.5 flat split, a 38.5 vert, 10.6 in the broad. He was explosive. He was fast, and he showcased that on tape. Now, the thing with him is that he's not a well-versed route runner. His route tree is not robust right now. So there were some issues. He had a couple drops where they would do slants and in breakers, things he wasn't accustomed to running this year at LSU. It definitely reared its ugly head at the combine. But when you're talking about a projected first round pick, a guy that can really like develop into something, absolutely. Adonai Mitchell, AD Mitchell from Texas, 6'2", 205, 32 and 3/8 on the hands, 4.34, 152 split, 39.5-inch vert with 11.4 broad. This is a guy that coming out, he answered a question. That's typically what you want at the combine. Answer the question. The question was, how fast is he? How dynamic? How explosive? What kind of athlete? Well, he's a top tier type of athlete when you look at his testing. Sub 4.4, 39, 11.4 in the broad. Incredible testing numbers. But when you look at his tape, he's a route runner, a guy that's tempoed, he's patient, he's nuanced, he knows how to get open, Patricia. He knows how to find his spots, how to beat man-to-man coverage, and how could that help Daniel Jones? Give him an easy target to get the ball to, but also he's very good at the catch point. He tracks the ball well. He's very strong hands, can go up, contort his body with body control. I think if you the playoff game versus Washington, Quinn Ewers threw a back shoulder fade to him in the end zone, and Adonai jumped way too early. Actually, he timed his jump wrong, but the control to hold himself and almost double jump in the air and double extend his frame to not only just jump and realize like, oh, I'm a little early, but then hold his body midair, reach out again, and at the right time, snatch the ball out of the air. It was one of the best catches I've seen all season. So I think he absolutely helped himself. But if you're thinking about, especially where you guys are in the draft, I think with the Malik Neighbors being there, I think that's the spot where if you're not going quarterback, I think Malik Neighbors would be an outstanding fit for Daniel Jones. Because you think about with Brian Daboll being in Buffalo with Stephon Diggs, knowing how to call plays for a 3-level route runner, that's what you will get with Malik Neighbors. And his explosiveness, he's so dynamic, so explosive after the catch and in space, where it's just like, hey, Daniel, that 2-yard hitch, get it to him. That 2-yard, 3-yard drop and get it to the slant, give it to him. And give mesh concepts, crossers, easy stuff to help. Because I always say this, like with quarterbacks, getting those easy completions is like a basketball player getting those easy layups. Sometimes it takes the easy stuff for everything else to open up and for your vision and your confidence to grow. That's why you see guys hit those layups early in basketball games. Then they start shooting mid-range. Then they start hitting their threes. The basket looks bigger to them. And you want Daniel Jones to get into a rhythm earlier in games if he's going to be your quarterback. So once he gets comfortable, he's protected, he's in the rhythm and the flow, I think that's when you really feel good about what he's going to bring to the table.
Did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA with a 3% match. This offer is good through April 30. Get started at robinhood.com/boost. Subscriptions fees apply. And now for some legal info. Claim as of Q1 2024 validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risk, including loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date of first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. The 3% matching on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC, is a registered broker-dealer. Damian, what about some other receivers? This is believed to be a very, very deep receiver class. Absolutely. To where maybe you can get, a contributor as late as, early day 3. So, I think I look at the Giants and I say, okay, they definitely need a number 1 receiver. They have Wan'Dale Robinson, who's kind of a specialty type of player. They've got Jalen Hyatt, who could be a deep player. Darius Slayton is on the last year of his contract as we record this. I don't know what his future is. But, I would not rule out the Giants maybe double dipping in this class, as strange as it might seem given all the needs they have. But that being said, when you look at this class, who are some names that we're not talking about in this deep receiver class that you think can make just as much of an impact?
Listen, I'll start right at the top with the bloodlines, and that's Brendan Rice, the son of Jerry Rice. 6'2", 210 pounds, 33 inches even on the arm. I met the young man. Very, very fun kid. Very, just to himself. He loves to have fun, loves to joke, but he's about his business as well. A great kid, and he ran a 4.5 flat, jumped nearly 37 inches, a 1.55 10-yard split with almost a 10-inch broad jump. He's got a good game. He played it with Caleb Williams at USC, so he's used to a quarterback that can use his legs and be mobile, like we've seen with Daniel Jones over his career. Create, with his legs, create scramble drills, so he knows how to break free from coverage, work back to his quarterback. But he's a good enough route runner at 6'2", almost 6'3". He's strong. I remember talking to some of the DBs at the Senior Bowl. They said, "Listen, you gotta be weary trying to press him because he's physical." And he will play to that level of physicality. He's got good ball skills at the catch point. And for a 200-plus pound receiver, he can get in and out of his breaks well. I think this is a guy where if you talk about, hey, you know what, maybe we go tackle if you wanted to go tackle round one, if you wanted to improve the offensive line. Maybe if you didn't want to go quarterback or somebody else wanted to trade up for another position, you wanted to trade down and recoup more picks, you could do that. You can get him more than likely third round, in my honest opinion, maybe late second. But day two, absolutely, you can get a Brendan Rice and have him walk into that offense and be kind of that X receiver on the outside for you, and you feel happy about that. Another guy, I think about Javon Baker from UCF, who this is a Alabama transfer, who moved over to UCF a year or two ago. Let's say 6'1", 202. 32 and a quarter on the arm. He ran a 4.54. He jumped 10-1. He had a 37-inch vertical. He's a good route runner with that use his pacing, but he's got like that 4.54. Don't let it mislead you because he has actual speed. He can stack guys. He can pull away and separate from guys, but he's so competitive. I remember watching him down at the Senior Bowl, being on the sideline, watching him in one-on-ones. This young man wants to get the ball, and he's going to talk some trash too. So I always talk about yes, scheme and team fits are so important, but I always like to pair players to the cities that they go to. Like, you can't take a soft-spoken quarterback and throw him in New York City. That's not even going to work. With the New York media, the fans, everybody's tough. They're gritty. They're brash. They're confident. And you want guys that fit and mesh with the city and the culture. And I think Javon Baker has that. He's got what we call that dog in him. He's very, very confident what he brings to the table. But I always think about, this is a guy that I think right now I know he met with 26 teams formally right now, talking to his agent, Keon Coleman from Florida State. A lot of people are like, "Oh, he ran a 4.61. Clearly, you can't draft him." That's not true. You know what I mean? I think that to me, he's not a sleeper. He's one of my top 5 receivers, but I feel like by the time we get to April, by the time we get to the draft, he's going to be a sleeper because everybody's like, "Well, I didn't like the separation. I didn't like the speed he showed at the combine." But the speed on tape is legitimate. He's a punt returner. He can catch the ball, make guys miss in open field. He has good playing speed. His play speed is good, but he is arguably one of the best in terms of separating vertically, the verticality at the catch point. Whereas, listen, at the end of the day, I call him an accuracy eraser. He played with Jordan Travis, and Jordan Travis is a fine college quarterback, but his accuracy is not the best. So you're talking about being able to put the ball, the same thing with Rome. Just put it in the vicinity, put it in the town, and he can go make a play for you. His ability to erase erratic throws and make a play on it is outstanding. And I think if he falls to the second round, 6'4", 215, 220, jump 38, right? He's explosive vertically as a leaper, but he can run routes. And I think he ran the gauntlet drill. Remember, this was with Puka Nacua, who was the breakout rookie for the Los Angeles Rams and one of the best receivers in 2023. Puka ran like a 4.6 in the 40, if I remember correctly, but he did the gauntlet drill. He was the fastest receiver through the gauntlet drill. Well, fast forward a year later, that's Keon Coleman. He was the fastest receiver through the gauntlet drill, staying on the straight line, catching everything, showing the strong, soft, reliable hands. I think this is a guy that has a big playmaking ability in the NFL, and all it's about getting him with the right offense. I think Brian Daboll could absolutely get the best out of him, and he can give Daniel Jones a big, reliable, and physical target to pair with like a Darren Waller and Wan'Dale Robinson and those guys.
Damian, in terms of draft sleepers, I know guys help themselves. We spoke about sleepers last time you were on the show. Maybe some of those guys didn't test as well or whatever. Who are some of the guys that, and the Giants have needs across the board. There's not one specific position, but who are some of the guys that jumped out at you based on their testing as well as combined with their film and what you expect of them?
Well, I mean, I know that running back is kind of a situation for the Giants right now with Saquon not getting tagged, and I think about Tennessee running back Jalen Wright, where the tape is good. He has good NFL size, 5'10 and a half, 210, but he ran a 4.38. He jumped 38. He jumped 11.2 in the broad. This is a dynamic and explosive running back. And you talk about, well, we just had that in Saquon, right? But Saquon, of course, is a different animal. But if you wanted to get a guy that could pair well with Eric Gray, and you kind of go maybe committee based, where he, not just a true bell cow number one running back, Jalen Wright 100% would be a nice option late day 2. I think maybe early day 3, but the way he tested, he probably is going to be a 3rd round pick because he does have the NFL height, weight, and size. But with that athleticism, that speed, he's a home run hitter. And I think this is a guy that you think about getting easy throws to Daniel Jones, getting the ball out into the flats, right? Screens and different things like that. Designing plays where he's blocking, chip, delay, get out into the flats. And if they're not keyed in on him, you get the ball to him, dump it down, and let him be explosive out in the open field and get chunk yardage after the catch. That's going to absolutely help your quarterback. I think when you look at corner, I know corner was also a situation or a position for you guys that needed to that you have to kind of like build up and add more talent to. And I think about Kamari Lassiter from Georgia, a guy that I've just finished watching the tape on. He didn't do all of the testing, but his 3 cones, 6.62, 20-yard shuttle, 4.12, and his tape is really good. Measuring at 5'11", 186. A guy who could play in the nickel, also play outside. Because I believe Dory Jackson is going to free agency. So you're talking about adding some toughness, some grit, and being coached by Kirby Smart and being on a 2-time national championship defense with the Georgia Bulldogs does a lot for you. And then also looking at the cornerback position as well, Renardo Green from Florida State. Him and his teammate, Jerry and Jones, both of those guys, 4.49 for Renardo, 37 and a half inch, a 10.10 on the broad. Like, just seeing these corners, this cornerback class to me, is very good. And I think you can get there's a lot of talent. And a guy that I think is a big sleeper, but he performed well. And I met him spent time with him at the Senior Bowl. Cam Hart, I didn't know the name, 6'3", 202, 33-inch arms. He ran a 4.5. He jumped 10.10, 39.5-inch vert, 7.12 on the broad in the 3 cone and the 4.24 short shuttle. This guy that could play press man against bigger receivers. Then he can drop off into that kind of cover 3 zone. And with his height and weight, if he's dropped off in the cover 2 as like a sink defender, it's hard to lob that ball over the top of him with his leaping ability, with his arm length, and with his height. I think that he could be a good fit in that defense for the Giants.
Damian, we always talk every year, the media, the fans, they have one perception of the draft. The NFL community has another. Where do you think the two have kind of merged where, having seen the testing and whatnot, now the fans are starting to maybe see, what the NFL community is starting to see?
I'll start with Xavier Legette, the receiver out of South Carolina. Spencer Rattler's number 1 target, measured at 6'1", 221. He ran a 4.39. He jumped 40 inches. I believe he jumped a little over 11 in the broad. Coming in, people were kind of up and down with him, like, well, I don't know what to expect. He's at that 1-year breakout. He battled some injuries early on. He's his last year in high school, he was he started at quarterback. They just said, hey, we're gonna put our best playmaker at quarterback. Just go make plays for us, run the ball, QB power, stuff like that. So that was a year removed and taking him away from the natural position of wide receiver. But when you look at this young man, he's a hard worker. He's dynamic. He has an athleticism. He's built similar to almost like AJ Brown, Debo Samuel-ish, and he can do similar things. He lined up everywhere for South Carolina at, in the slot, out wide. They put him in the backfield at times, different things like that. And this is a guy that I think now the NFL was already higher on, but it seems like the fans are starting to come around on a little in the draft community a little bit more as well. And I think you just look at a guy like that. Of course, Peyton Wilson from North Carolina State, the way he tested, people are now like, listen, he's an actual linebacker that can do multiple things: blitz off the edge, blitz up the A gap, drop off in coverage, play the run. He ran a 4.4, I think a 4.43 or something like that in the combine. Super explosive, very dynamic, that can bring a lot to your defense and to your team just in general. And I think now also that Tyler Newman is probably going to end up being the first safety off the board, the way from what I've heard, like, the kid from Minnesota, mainly because, we saw Cam Kitchens down from Miami. He went to the Senior Bowl, did not have a strong week, got to the combine, ran a 4.65 at like 205 pounds. So the question, and it's crazy because he's a guy that shows range on tape, but I think it's a situation when you look at it, I think his range is tied to his instincts, and when he's playing fast and his play speed is better than his time speed. But I think that's the NFL size to be able to play man-to-man against big receivers, play man-to-man against tight ends, and Tyler Newman, and a guy that moves well, shows the instincts and range on tape. I think that's where now the draft community and the NFL starting to come a little bit closer together on that prospect as well.
Damian, final question for you. Is there a position in this draft that if you were a general manager and you had a need at that position that you would say, nah, I think I'm going to go free agency because the free agency class is maybe a little bit better than the draft class?
Ooh, I would say maybe running back. Yep, running back. This is a loaded free agent running back group. This draft class doesn't have the Bijan, the Jahmyr Gibbs in it, but there's good starting talent. And a guy like Trey Benson out of Florida State, who at 220 pounds ran a 4.39. It's just unbelievable when you see him up close in person. But I think if a team says, you know what, let's not, I could grab a guy on day 3 if I wanted to, and I probably could 5th, 6th round and see what I can get out of that. But with Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, and all these different free agent running backs, that's the one position I would say maybe I go ahead and get one of these proven guys, especially if I'm a team that's trying to contend. I have cap space. I'll go out here and pay one of these guys to come in and lead my running attack.
We'll see what the Giants do because, as you said, Saquon Barkley is going to hit the market. Although I wonder if maybe getting a number one receiver might shift things a little bit because the Giants do want to become more explosive. They want to push the ball downfield, and there's only so many balls to go around. And I know you need a running game, but, I'm not saying they won't miss Saquon, but I just wonder if that's factoring into their decision.
Could be. It absolutely could be. I mean, it's a passing league now, and Saquon is such a outstanding talent, but you do need to continue to improve the receiving position. If you can do that, it will always help. I always say, if I'm a GM or talk to anybody in front offices, I'll tell them, you do your job. You put as much talent around the quarterback, and now you leave all the questions to the quarterback. If you can't get it done with the team I put around you, that means that's more of a you problem than a me problem. And that's where you absolve yourself of all blame, and you can go ahead and move forward. Because if you haven't put the talent around him, it will always be that question of, what would he look like with Tyreek Hill? What would he look like with Devontae Adams or Justin Jefferson? Well, go get some of these guys through the draft, or if they're available in free agency at the receiver position, give him the weapons he needs. And if he still cannot get the job done, you can wipe your hands with it, dust off your feet, and go ahead and pan forward to the future.
He is Damian Parson. He is with the Draft Network and Locked On NFL Draft. You want to check out his work, folks. Also teams up with Coach K, Keith Sanchez, over at the NFL Locked On NFL Draft. So please check out their work. They're doing fantastic stuff. And especially as we get closer and closer to the big D day. Damian, thank you so much for coming on the podcast with me. Always great catching up with you. You are just an absolute wealth of knowledge.
No, thank you. Anytime.
All right, Giant fans, that's going to do it for us here on the Locked On Giants podcast. Thank you for tuning in. As always, make sure you keep it here all week long. We'll have plenty more coming your way, including our live stream, which will be Friday night. You will not want to miss it. 7:30, Traina, Tana, and Dog live stream. Bring your questions on YouTube, and we'll answer them. And we'll, of course, talk about all things Giants. For Damian Parson, I'm Patricia Traina. We will see you tomorrow, Giant fans.